Ladies and gentlemen, today we're diving into the raw truth, the hard-hitting reality about why so many relationships crumble. Relationships are the heartbeat of our lives. They can fuel us or drain us, empower us or break us. But why do so many fail? Let's strip away the fluff and get to the core. The main reason most relationships fail isn't some catastrophic event, it's the accumulation of small, unresolved issues that erode trust, connection, and love over time. Most relationships don't fail because of a lack of love, they fail because of a lack of understanding, starting with emotional awareness. Think about it, how can you meet your partner's emotional needs if you don't fully understand your own? Emotional awareness is the foundation of a healthy relationship, yet it's often overlooked or underestimated. When we talk about emotional awareness, we're referring to the ability to recognize, understand, and articulate your own emotions and those of others. It's not just about knowing when you feel happy or sad, it's about digging deeper, understanding why you feel a certain way and how those feelings influence your behavior. Here's where most couples go wrong. They operate on autopilot. They assume their partner knows how they feel, or worse, they assume their partner should know without being told. But relationships aren't built on assumptions, they're built on clarity and communication. Imagine this: one partner feels neglected because the other is working long hours. Instead of expressing their feelings and asking for quality time, they withdraw or become passive-aggressive. Meanwhile, the working partner assumes everything is fine because nothing's been said. This lack of awareness and communication creates a gap that over time becomes a chasm. Emotional awareness also involves empathy, stepping into your partner's shoes and seeing the world through their eyes. It's not about fixing their problems or dismissing their feelings, it's about validating them. When someone says, "I feel hurt," they don't want a solution, they want to be heard, to know their emotions matter. But here's the catch: you can't give what you don't have. If you're disconnected from your own emotions, you'll struggle to connect with your partners. That's why personal growth is so critical in relationships. Take the time to reflect on your own emotional triggers, patterns, and needs. Ask yourself, what emotions do I struggle to express? How do I typically react when I'm upset? What do I need from my partner to feel supported? Once you've gained clarity about yourself, you can approach your partner with curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of saying, "You're so distant lately, I've noticed you've been quieter than usual. Is everything okay?" This shift in tone can open the door to honest, meaningful conversations. Emotional awareness is not a one-time achievement, it's a lifelong practice. It requires patience, vulnerability, and effort. But the payoff, it's massive. When both partners are emotionally aware, conflicts become opportunities for growth and differences become a source of strength instead of division. In the end, a relationship without emotional awareness is like a house built on sand. It might look strong for a while, but it won't withstand the storms. So if you want to love that lasts, start with the foundation. Start with understanding yourself and your partner. Because emotional awareness isn't just a skill, it's the lifeline of love. Unrealistic expectations, the silent relationship saboteur. Unrealistic expectations are like invisible weights strapped to a relationship. You may not see them at first, but over time they create pressure, strain, and ultimately disappointment. The truth is, expectations in relationships are inevitable, but when they're unrealistic or unspoken, they become a recipe for failure. Let's break this down. Unrealistic expectations often stem from the stories we've been told about love. Movies, fairy tales, and even social media paint this picture of what a relationship should look like: constant passion, effortless understanding, and a partner who meets our every need without being asked. Sounds amazing, right? But here's the problem: it's a fantasy. In reality, relationships are messy, complicated, and require work. When we hold our partners to impossible standards, we set them up for failure and set ourselves up for disappointment. For example, expecting your partner to always know what you're thinking or feeling without communicating. Believing that love should always feel exciting and never mundane. Assuming your partner should change to fit your ideal version of them. These expectations create a dynamic where your partner is constantly falling short, even if they're trying their best. Over time, this fosters resentment, frustration, and disconnection. But unrealistic expectations don't just come from external influences, they also arise from within. Sometimes we expect our partner to fill emotional voids that only we can address. We look to them to make us happy, to heal our insecurities, or to give our life meaning. This isn't love, it's dependency, and no relationship can thrive under that kind of weight. Now let's talk about unspoken expectations. These are the silent killers. You assume your partner knows what you need, but you've never actually voiced it. For instance, you expect them to prioritize date nights, but you never express how important that is to you. You hope they'll support your career ambitions, but you've never shared your goals or concerns. You feel hurt when they don't celebrate your achievements, but you've never told them how much that matters to you. When these expectations go unmet, it's easy to feel hurt or disappointed. But here's the reality: your partner isn't a mind reader. If you don't communicate your needs, you can't expect them to fulfill them. So how do we break free from the trap of unrealistic and unspoken expectations? It starts with self-awareness and communication. Reflect on your expectations. Ask yourself, are these realistic? Are they fair? Am I expecting my partner to be someone they're not? Communicate openly. Share your needs and desires with your partner in a way that invites collaboration, not criticism. Instead of saying, you never do X, try, it would mean a lot to me if we could do X together. Embrace imperfection. No one is perfect, not you, not your partner, not your relationship. Real love isn't about perfection, it's about choosing to show up flaws and all day after day. Remember, relationships are not about finding someone who fits your mold or fulfills your every expectation. They're about two people coming together with all their differences and imperfections to build something beautiful and real. When you let go of unrealistic expectations and start communicating honestly, you create space for a relationship that thrives on authenticity, understanding, and mutual respect. Because love isn't about what you expect to receive, it's about what you're willing to give and build together. Poor communication, the root of relationship breakdown. Poor communication is one of the most common reasons relationships fail. It's not just about the big arguments or heated debates, it's often the small, everyday miscommunications and unspoken words that create cracks in the foundation of a relationship. Think about it. Communication is the lifeline of any partnership. It's how we express our needs, share our dreams, resolve conflicts, and build intimacy. Yet many couples struggle with it because they underestimate its importance or don't know how to communicate effectively. At its core, poor communication leads to misunderstandings. One person says something with one intention, but the other hears it through the lens of their own emotions, assumptions, or past experiences. For example, partner A says, I wish we could spend more time together. Partner B hears, you don't prioritize me even though that wasn't what was said or meant. This misalignment creates tension, and over time it can snowball into resentment, frustration, and emotional distance. But poor communication isn't just about what's said, it's also about what's not said. Unspoken needs and bottled up emotions are silent killers in relationships. When you don't express what you truly feel or need, your partner is left guessing. This often leads to unmet expectations and feelings of neglect. For example, one partner might feel underappreciated for their efforts, but instead of saying, I'd love to hear you acknowledge the things I do for us, they stay silent and stew in their frustration. Meanwhile, the other partner has no idea there's an issue. Then there's the way we communicate during conflict. Many people fall into destructive patterns like blaming, you never listen to me. Defensiveness, well, I wouldn't do that if you didn't. Stonewalling, shutting down and refusing to engage. These responses escalate conflict instead of resolving it. The focus shifts from solving the problem to winning the argument, and the relationship suffers as a result. So how do we overcome poor communication? It starts with intention and practice. Listen to understand, not to respond. Most people listen with the intent to reply, not to truly hear their partner. Instead, focus on understanding their perspective. Ask clarifying questions like, what do you mean by that? Or can you tell me more about how you're feeling? Express yourself clearly and honestly. Be specific about your feelings and needs. Instead of saying, you don't care about me, try when you don't check in during the day, I feel disconnected. It would mean a lot if we could have more regular updates. Practice empathy. Put yourself in your partner's shoes. How might they be feeling? What might they need from you in this moment? Empathy helps bridge the gap between two different perspectives. Stay calm during conflicts. When emotions run high, it's easy to say things you don't mean. Take a moment to breathe and collect your thoughts before responding. Remember, the goal is to resolve the issue, not to hurt each other. Make communication a daily habit. Good communication isn't just for when things go wrong. Make it a regular part of your relationship. Share your highs and lows, your dreams and fears. This builds trust and deepens your connection. At the end of the day, communication is about more than words, it's about connection. When you communicate openly and effectively, you create a space where both partners feel heard, valued, and understood. Because in a relationship, the way you talk to each other shapes the way you love each other. And when communication thrives, so does the relationship. Fear of vulnerability, the barrier to true connection. Fear of vulnerability is one of the most profound obstacles to building deep, meaningful relationships. While vulnerability is the gateway to intimacy and trust, it's often the very thing people avoid out of fear of rejection, judgment, or being hurt. Let's unpack what vulnerability really means. It's not just about sharing your secrets or exposing your weaknesses. Vulnerability is about allowing yourself to be seen fully without walls or masks. It's saying, this is who I am, my strengths, my flaws, my hopes, and my fears. But here's the challenge. Vulnerability feels risky. It means opening yourself up to the possibility of being hurt. For many, that risk feels too great, especially if past experiences have taught them that vulnerability leads to pain. Maybe they've been betrayed, criticized, or dismissed when they try to open up. These experiences create emotional armor or shield meant to protect, but that ultimately isolates. When fear of vulnerability takes hold in a relationship, it creates distance. Partners may avoid discussing their true feelings, opting for surface-level conversations instead. Hesitate to ask for what they need, fearing rejection or ridicule. Struggle to apologize or admit mistakes, worried it will make them look weak. This fear often manifests as defensiveness, withdrawal, or even perfectionism. For example, someone might act overly self-reliant to avoid appearing needy, or they might put up a facade of always having it together, refusing to show their struggles. While these behaviors might feel safer in the moment, they prevent the relationship from reaching its full potential. Why? Because intimacy requires authenticity. You can't build a deep connection if you're only showing a curated version of yourself. Your partner might love the person you're presenting, but deep down, you'll wonder if they'd still love the real you, the one you're hiding. So how do we overcome the fear of vulnerability? It starts with understanding in small intentional steps. Recognize the root of your fear. Ask yourself, why am I afraid to be vulnerable? Is it because of past hurt? Fear of rejection? Understanding the why helps you begin to heal. Acknowledge that vulnerability is a strength. Contrary to popular belief, being vulnerable doesn't make you weak, it makes you courageous. It takes bravery to show up as your authentic self, especially in a world that often values perfection over authenticity. Start small. Vulnerability doesn't mean bearing your soul all at once. Begin with small acts like sharing a personal thought or admitting when you're feeling uncertain. These small steps build trust and confidence over time. Create a safe space with your partner. Mutual vulnerability requires trust. Encourage open, judgment-free conversations where both of you feel safe to share without fear of criticism or dismissal. Accept imperfection in yourself and your partner. True connection comes from embracing each other's humanity, flaws and all. When you let go of the need to appear perfect, you give your partner permission to do the same. Reframe vulnerability as an opportunity. Instead of seeing vulnerability as a risk, view it as an opportunity to deepen your connection. Every time you open up, you're giving your partner a chance to show up for you and prove they're trustworthy. Here's the truth, love is inherently vulnerable. When you love someone, you're handing them the power to hurt you while trusting that they won't. It's scary, yes, but it's also what makes love so powerful. Without vulnerability, relationships remain superficial. They may look fine on the outside, but they lack the depth and intimacy that make them truly fulfilling. With vulnerability, you create a foundation of trust, empathy, and authenticity that can weather any storm. So ask yourself, are you holding back because of fear? If so, what are you really protecting yourself from? Often the risk of vulnerability is far outweighed by the reward of genuine connection. Because at the end of the day, love isn't about building walls to keep yourself safe, it's about tearing them down to let someone in. Fear, misunderstandings, and unmet expectations are the silent barriers that prevent relationships from thriving. Each obstacle, whether it's poor communication, fear of vulnerability, unrealistic expectations, or a lack of emotional awareness, erodes the foundation of trust, connection, and love. However, every relationship has the potential to overcome these challenges. The key lies in self-awareness, open communication, and the courage to embrace imperfection. True connection comes from understanding both yourself and your partner, letting go of assumptions, and committing to grow together. The ultimate takeaway, relationships thrive not when they are perfect, but when both partners choose to show up authentically, communicate effectively, and create a safe space for vulnerability and mutual growth. Love isn't about avoiding risk, it's about embracing it with intention, trust, and effort.